He didn't want to be a part. He didn't want to be a wheeler dealer anymore.
The legacy of wheeler dealers and the unexpected departure wheeler dealers became a beloved show in the world of automotive television. Thanks to the unique partnership between Mike Brewer and Edd China, for over a decade, the series captivated audiences by following Mike's sharp eye for spotting undervalued classic cars and Edd's deep mechanical expertise that brought those vehicles back to life. Their teamwork made car restoration accessible and entertaining for viewers around the globe, blending educational value with genuine passion. The dynamic duo didn't just restore cars, they restored history, breathing new life into vintage models that had been forgotten or left to rust. But in 2017, everything changed. Fans were left stunned when Edd China suddenly exited the show. After 13 years of working side by side with Mike, his departure wasn't just surprising, it sparked countless questions and rumors. What had really gone wrong? Was there a falling out? Would wheeler dealers ever be the same without him? For years, Mike Brewer remained largely silent about the details, leaving fans to speculate. Now, after much time has passed, Mike is finally speaking openly about what happened behind the scenes, offering insight into one of reality television's most talked about exits. A strong partnership built on passion and skill from the very beginning, Mike and Edd's chemistry was undeniable. Mike brought his charm, wit, and an incredible knack for negotiating deals, while Edd delivered in-depth, step-by-step restorations that educated even the most seasoned car enthusiasts. Their personalities complemented each other perfectly. Mike was the hustler, the deal-maker, the face out in the field. Edd, on the other hand, was the thoughtful craftsman in the garage, the man who turned seemingly hopeless wrecks into showroom-ready classics. Together, they gave wheeler dealers a unique identity. Fans didn't just tune in for the cars. Tuned in for the banter, the friendship, and the satisfaction of watching a total transformation unfold over the course of each episode. Whether it was a rusty old Mustang or a quirky Citroen SM, Mike and Edd made each restoration feel like a journey worth taking. Their shared passion made the show more than just another car program. It became a staple for anyone who loved the stories behind classic cars, highlight episodes that defined the show over the years. The duo restored some truly unforgettable vehicles. One fan-favorite episode featured a 1966 Mustang Fastback that Mike discovered in rough shape. Despite its condition, he saw potential and Edd delivered, turning it into a sleek, powerful beauty. Another standout was the rare 1973 Citroen SM, a challenging project that tested Edd's skills to the limit due to its complex design and hard-to-find parts. Their ability to transform these cars while making each step educational and entertaining was what made the show special. The 1968 Ford Bronco restoration was also a major hit, blending rugged off-road charm with Edd's technical finesse. Then came the elegant 1965 Jaguar E-Type, where Edd meticulously preserved the vehicle's original features while subtly upgrading performance. Perfect balance of respect for history and modern enhancement. These episodes weren't just popular, they became iconic. Fans still talk about them as peak moments in wheeler dealers' history, testament to the power of teamwork and vision. The slow drift behind the scenes, however, even as the show reached new heights, tensions were quietly rising behind the curtain. By 2017, wheeler dealers had been on air for over a decade, and with success came pressure. Television is a fast-changing landscape. Producers began pushing for a new direction, one that emphasized quicker pacing, dramatic reveals, and broader appeal. Long, detailed workshop segments, which had been Edd's hallmark, were now seen as slowing the show down. To keep viewers engaged, the format started shifting away from deep technical content. Mike understood the business side. He believed that evolving the show was necessary to stay competitive. He often spoke about the challenge of balancing entertainment and education, and for him, adapting to the audience's shifting preferences was a strategic move. Edd, however, felt differently. For him, the joy of the show was in the detail, the slow, careful craftsmanship, the educational walkthroughs, and the satisfaction of solving complex mechanical puzzles. Cutting back on that content didn't feel like innovation to Edd. Felt like erasure. creative differences turned to frustration. This creative divide marked the beginning of a gradual split. It wasn't an explosive fallout, it was more like a slow divergence. Mike and Edd still respected each other, but their visions no longer aligned. Edd began to feel that the heart of the show, his contributions in the workshop, were being overshadowed by a push for more polished, television-friendly content. The reduced workshop time took away his core purpose and passion. It wasn't about money or ego, it was about creative integrity. Behind the scenes, discussions became increasingly difficult. Edd wasn't happy with the direction, and Mike found himself caught between production demands and his co-host's concerns. According to Mike, there was no personal feud, just a professional disagreement about where Wheeler Dealers should go. Eventually, the tension reached a point where continuing together simply wasn't feasible. Edd chose to walk away, and Mike chose to carry on. It was the end of an era. The emotional toll and lifestyle strain. Edd's departure wasn't just about format, it was also about lifestyle. Filming Wheeler Dealers had grown more demanding, especially when the production relocated to California. The climate, the schedule, long hours indoors, it all began to wear on Edd. He had always been a workshop man, someone who valued precision, focus, and time to work without interruption. The faster-paced, flashier environment didn't suit him. What had once been an exciting project began to feel like a chore. Mike has since reflected that Edd's enthusiasm began to fade. The fun of restoring cars was being replaced by the pressures of keeping up with television schedules and expectations. Edd valued freedom, space, and the rhythm of mechanical work, things that became harder to hold on to in the show's new direction. The production process itself had evolved, becoming more about entertainment than restoration. Edd no longer felt at home in that world. A quiet goodbye and unanswered questions when Edd announced his departure. It came with little explanation. Fans hoped it was temporary, but the truth was more complex. The divide between their creative goals had become too wide. Mike respected Edd's decision, even if it hurt. Over time, Mike remained professional and quiet, not wanting to damage the legacy they had built together. But now, years later, as he begins to share more openly, fans are finally getting a fuller picture. The departure of Edd China from Wheeler Dealers marked more than just a cast change, it was a symbolic end to a deeply loved chapter in the show's history. While Mike continues to lead new seasons and evolve the show's format, many fans still fondly remember the original chemistry that made it great. The legacy of Mike and Edd's partnership lives on in the episodes they created and the passion they inspired, and although their paths have diverged, the respect remains. Whether their friendship can ever fully return to what it once was is uncertain. But one thing is clear: the story of Wheeler Dealers is forever shaped by the unique bond they shared and the cars they brought back to life together. The discomfort Edd China experienced during the later stages of Wheeler Dealers wasn't simply about minor issues. It was a combination of growing creative disagreements and a deeper feeling that something fundamental had shifted. It wasn't just that Edd felt his role on the show was gradually shrinking. The entire environment no longer felt right or aligned with who he was. What had once been a passionate pursuit began to feel like a compromise. The drive and enthusiasm that had propelled him for years slowly started to fade, replaced by a growing sense of dissatisfaction that was hard to ignore. Behind the scenes, Mike Brewer observed these changes with increasing concern. He had always respected Edd not just as a mechanic, but as a creative partner and friend. Mike didn't want to push Edd into continuing something that no longer felt fulfilling to him. However, as the demands of production ramped up in the show's format shifted toward a broader entertainment style, the space for compromise between them narrowed. Despite these behind-the-scenes tensions, Mike has always made it clear that their eventual split was not caused by arguments or explosive disagreements. There were no shouting matches or broken friendships. Instead, their parting was more of a quiet, gradual separation, a realization that their once intertwined paths were now heading in very different directions. This subtle but undeniable growing distance was emotionally difficult for both of them. After all, they had shared over a decade of success, laughter, and creative synergy. But as Edd's frustration continued to build, their once strong partnership began to unravel. From Mike's perspective, the situation was complicated. He acknowledges how hard it was to balance the ongoing evolution of the show with the personal and creative needs of his longtime co-host. While Mike truly understood where Edd was coming from, he also had a responsibility to protect the show's future Ivan when that meant making some tough, perhaps painful, decisions. What made this period especially challenging was not just the creative rift, but a growing divide in lifestyle and priorities. Edd preferred a quieter, more focused working environment, one where craftsmanship and technical depth took center stage. This clashed with the show's new direction, which leaned more into broader entertainment to attract larger audiences. To casual viewers, the split might have appeared sudden, but behind the scenes, it was actually the result of months, not years of slow-burning changes that chipped away at the foundation of their collaboration. Neither man could have predicted just how public the aftermath of Edd's departure would become. Once he left Wheeler Dealers, Edd began speaking openly about his frustrations. He didn't hold back in criticizing the show's new direction, making it clear that he disagreed with the way things were going. Meanwhile, Mike chose a very different approach. He avoided public conflict, opting not to engage in a back and forth. Their final goodbye wasn't played out in front of cameras or audiences. It happened quietly, almost symbolically, in a hotel room in Paris. It was not a destination chosen for a farewell, just a location dictated by the shooting schedule. Still, in retrospect, Mike remembers that evening as a bittersweet moment of reflection, a pause to acknowledge what had been and what was coming to an end. For 13 years, Mike and Edd had stood side by side, creating a show that blended mechanical expertise with genuine camaraderie. Together, they became beloved by fans around the globe. Yet by the time of that Paris night, their bond had already begun to fray. The creative tensions and personal differences had created emotional distance, even if they never allowed it to spill out in public. Mike recalls that evening, not with anger, but with a sense of quiet regret. Over drinks, the atmosphere was reflective rather than festive. There was no rehashing of past arguments, just an honest, unspoken understanding that things were ending. They discussed the show, their futures, and how much had changed. Edd's departure felt inevitable, and both of them knew it. Mike admits that he had hoped for a different ending. He wished they could have found a way to meet halfway, to rebuild the bridge between them. But deep down, he knew their creative visions had become too different. The friendship they shared only made the separation more painful. After that night, their paths officially diverged. Mike continued Wheeler Dealers with new co-hosts, while Edd ventured into new territory primarily through his own YouTube channel, where he could focus on the kind of detailed, hands-on restorations that had always been his passion. What made their parting especially poignant was the lingering respect between them. There was no bitterness, no scandal, just the quiet, heavy ending of a once strong partnership. However, beneath that calm surface, Mike admits to feeling a deeper disappointment. Edd's decision to publicly criticize the show after his exit stung. Although Mike never responded publicly, preferring to avoid a media feud, those comments left a mark. The emotional gap between them widened further. Mike made several efforts to reconnect, reaching out to Edd in hopes of restoring at least a line of communication. But Edd remained distant, and that silence spoke volumes. It revealed that the split was more than just a professional break-it, was also a personal one. That final evening in Paris has become, in Mike's memory, a snapshot of everything that changed. A moment filled with quiet regret, mutual respect, and the weight of unspoken goodbyes. For years, fans speculated about the real reason Edd left Wheeler Dealers. The public explanation focused on creative differences, changing show formats, and personality clashes. But Mike's more recent comments have added a new, more revealing layer to the story, one that sheds light on the deeper emotions behind Edd's decision. Mike doesn't shy away from the complexity of it all. He confirms there was no explosive fallout, no bitter feud. But he also admits that the break was more painful than fans had realized. Ed's choice to leave wasn't just about reduced workshop time or discomfort with how filming was handled. It reflected a deeper, more personal disappointment. As the show changed, Edd felt increasingly sidelined, as though his expertise and role were no longer appreciated in the way they once were. What truly hurt Mike, though, was not the decision itself, but how Edd chose to handle it afterward. Instead of making a quiet exit, Edd took two public platforms to express his frustrations. His criticisms cast the show, and indirectly Mike, in a negative light. Mike admits that there were times he was tempted to respond, to offer his side of the story, but he deliberately chose silence. He believed it was more dignified to let things lie than to engage in a public war of words. Unfortunately, that silence also created an imbalance. With only Edd's version out there, fans were left confused, and some unfairly placed blame on Mike. Adding to the heartbreak was Edd's reluctance to engage or reconnect after his exit. Mike made multiple attempts to reach out, but they were met with little or no response. This lack of closure only deepened Mike's disappointment, making the split feel truly final. Interestingly, Mike now acknowledges that Edd's frustrations weren't just about the creative format they reflected, a shift in their friendship as well. 13 years of collaboration had developed into something close and personal, but as expectations went unmet and feelings went unspoken, that relationship began to crack. Mike's reflections offer a rare glimpse into his honest human side. He doesn't blame Edd for leaving, he understands why it had to happen. But he does wish the public fallout had been handled differently, with more mutual respect and less emotional damage. This isn't a story of villains or heroes, but of two professionals whose dreams took different paths that neither of them fully anticipated. Mike's openness also explains why Edd's departure felt so final. The void left behind was not just in the workshop or on screen, it was in Mike's own life. He candidly shares how lonely it felt to continue without Edd, and how challenging it was to keep the show going without his longtime partner. Despite this, Mike has remained committed to Wheeler Dealers. He takes pride in its continued success, even as it evolves with new faces and formats. But he never forgets the early days, the laughs, the builds, the partnership that once made it magic. The aftermath of Edd's departure left an undeniable mark not just on the show, but on the men who had built it together. For Mike, continuing the program meant embracing change while honoring its roots, brought in new co-hosts, each adding something unique, though the chemistry shared with Edd was difficult to replicate. Nonetheless, the show survived, even thrived, proving its strength lay not just in personalities, but in passion. Fans, too, were affected. Many missed Edd's meticulous, hands-on style. Others embraced the show's evolution. While opinions remained divided, the fan base stayed united by a love for restoration and classic cars. For Edd, the split opened new doors. His YouTube channel gave him freedom to work at his own pace, producing content on his terms, detailed, informative, and true to his vision. It attracted a different but loyal audience who appreciated his authenticity. As for their relationship, it remains distant. Mike's efforts to reconnect show he's open to healing, but those bridges haven't yet been rebuilt. Sometimes even long-term partnerships change in ways that can't easily be undone. Still, Mike's honesty about the past has sparked new conversations. It's helped fans see the human side of their story not just as co-hosts, but as two friends navigating the complex world of television, success, and personal evolution. Looking ahead, Mike continues to thrive as a presenter and car enthusiast. He has shown resilience and adaptability qualities that have kept Wheeler Dealers relevant. Edd, too, is charting his own course, rooted in precision and creativity. While their reunion remains uncertain, Mike's recent candor offers hope. Perhaps one day the two men who once brought so much joy to fans might find common ground again. Until then, the story of Mike and Edd remains a bittersweet one, a story of great beginnings, tough endings, and the possibility of redemption, even if it takes time.